Okay, hi everyone. So we're just like moving the chairs around and getting people mic'd up. But just to sort of optimize time, I figured I'd just start speaking because that's kind of what I do for a living. So I just fill out these moments. But it's a pleasure to be back here. My name is Michael Casey. I'm the chairman of something called the Decentralized AI Society. We are partnering with Ramesh's team at MIT to build a framework, a community. The Decentralized AI Society is a trade association. We're an organization that brings together companies and protocols and projects who are working toward this very important goal of decentralizing AI so that it's going to be beneficial to humans and it's going to drive innovation in a way that really supports humanity rather than, a few very large, narrowly defined platforms. So that's our purpose. Now, I come from the crypto world. I don't originally. I'm a journalist for most of my life. I was at the Wall Street Journal for a long time, and I stumbled, as many of us did, into the world of Bitcoin in around 2013, and then eventually just got so into it that I got sucked to this place, where I was one of the founding staffers at the Digital Currency Initiative when they had their 10-year anniversary the other day, which was a great pleasure. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. But what I want to do in referencing that is maybe establish the framework for what this conversation is about. So we're taking this wonderful framework that the Nanda team have put together around these registries, these mechanisms for communication, all this kind of coordination layer, if you like, for this multi-agent world that we're going into. And my task, what I see from the program, is that we're going to talk about a multi-agent economy. Now, the economy is an interesting framing, right? Because an economy is a place where we exchange value. And one of the things that's the great lessons from Bitcoin, those of us who went down that rabbit hole back then, was to discover kind of like the key piece of any economy is kind of hidden in the background for most of it. And you sort of really learn about it when this thing doesn't exist. And that's trust, right? So without trust, we can't really exchange with each other. Because I don't know whether you've got something to hide from me. I don't know whether this thing of value could disappear. And particularly when there's an exchange in which somebody is sitting on both of the things, the money and the good at the same time, right? So what Bitcoin did was to figure out a way to do that without having to trust an intermediary, a bank, right? That's how we're exchanging money. But when you sort of start going down it, and Anna, you went down the rabbit hole, and we started thinking about all the different ways in which value itself was compromised in the digital world, because value manifests in many more ways than just money, right? Data is valuable. We know that now, right? And of course, compute and all these different components of what makes for the digital economy. There's an exchange of value that needs to go in that. So essentially, I think one of the most important things, big questions we're going to face in this multi-agent world is, what is the trust mechanism? How do we build a system in which one agent talking to another agent can not just communicate, but can exchange something of value, right? Because the intelligence and the models and the compute, all that stuff is valuable. And somebody's going to have to pay for it. And how are they going to pay for it? And the thing that I think is really interesting, and this is, I think, too, for you're going to be able to weigh in on this quite well, is that, imagine that if you think back to the sort of the simple idea of going into a shop and a store. I'm Aussie, so I sometimes use words that don't always compute. But in any case, you're buying a can of Coke or something, right? And at some point, either you or the shopkeeper has both of those assets in their hand. The $2 that you've given them, and you don't know who it is. Sometimes it might be you. It doesn't really matter. No one's going to expect that this thing is going to be a breach, because it all plays out in a world of trust, because there's a different protocol, and that's the sort of the human expectation of trust. And it's a very short-lived kind of exchange. But think about anonymously defined, difficult to recognize AI agents all communicating and trading with each other. And these things can, within a split second, have that advantage, right? So we really have to figure out how are we going to actually move money back and forth and value generally in ways that one agent can't front run the other one. So I think there's like just a framing for what this conversation could be about, and we're getting close to being mic'd up. Everyone's in? Good, excellent. I did it. I filled out that whole time. All right. Let's go.
My name is Tufi.
Yeah, why don't you do this? Tufi, announce yourself and introduce yourself to everybody quickly.
I'm the author of Toda IP and got involved in the AI world at the AGI Summit in California about 3 years ago. When I asked the question, who do you think is going to win the battle towards AGI? Is it going to be Tencent or Google? Is it going to be Chinese government or US government? And the common answer was that it doesn't matter who is going to win, we're doomed. If it's unless it is the internet of AI who's going to win. And of course, many computer scientists in the room said that that's not possible. You're talking about Marvin Minsky, 1983. How many of you know Marvin Minsky?
Yeah.
Of course, yes. And he actually wrote the pseudocode of a lot of the stuff that we're working on here. The missing ingredient at the time is how you enable a multi-agent system to work with each other. And that's precisely why I asked the question, because if these guys, they did not exist, we would have had to create them. So thank you for all the work you're doing at Nanda, I think. Is that what it's called? Nanda? Yeah. I got involved with this and ended up being the CEO of Hypercycle, which is basically that missing ingredient. For many of you that you don't know the dilemma here is like, if an agent's trying to tell another agent, hey, can you help me out solve this problem? I need to know who is in this picture, because it turns out that you're the agent who knows about, let's say, facial recognition or whatnot. So agent A is telling agent B, can you help me out in a fraction of a second? Agent B would be like, why would I? Agent A would be like, if you do, I'll pay you a penny. And then agent B would be like, yeah, right, I'm going to do the work and you're going to run away. The other part of this would be like, here's the penny, why don't you do the work? And agent B will take the penny and run away. Okay, so us Homo sapien, we struggle from the same problem where we depended on a third party called a bank or a ledger-based blockchain or a government. Effectively, this is where we come in, where we embed the cryptographic proof inside the network packet that does a handshake, along with something that does not depend on a third party. So you end up with a light speed the moment you reach out to the other one. They have, if they've done the work that you are telling them to do, they have the proof of that, and they can spend the penny again, and so on and so forth. So with that, we ended up working with a lot of partners, and we feel really good at Google. They're meeting us halfway. Who would have thought that Google, out of everybody, they're doing something that is properly decentralized in A to A, and they don't address that layer. And I feel like there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle, as was indicated earlier. We're more like the glue in that puzzle. So that's
yeah. So thank you, Tufi. So that's one way of looking at what I see as this sort of the economy here. Why don't we go down the line here and we'll learn a little bit about Theoric, which is who Pei represents, the executive director of the Theoric Foundation. So Theoric is agent swarms, right? The best way to describe the sort of the technology that you've developed. So this coordinating, but it's really, I mean, it is a kind of an economy of agents doing things together. So why don't you lay out what's behind Theoric's model?
So hi everyone, I'm Pei. I'm the Executive Director and CEO at Theoric. So in a nutshell, Theoric is an agent swarm protocol in Web3, right? So I think in this room, like a lot of people have much richer and more complete picture of like what's going on in the Web2, the MCP model, the A2A agency, and all of that, like how the Web2, like the software tools and the agent communicate with each other through the tools. Maybe a lot of that is also like incremental changes versus Theoric and the Web3 agent, multi-agent systems, and the ecosystem is much more incentive driven. So I think Theoric kind of comes in to challenge a little bit of like the big guys in the Web2 multi-agent system by saying, hey, like, look, I think we could also not only connecting the agents, enabling them to communicate and perform simple tasks, we can actually empower them, enable them to become like independent economic actors on-chain economy, right? So my background is in crypto. I've been in crypto for 8 years, worked in Ethereum, at Consensus, in Bitcoin, at Rootstock Labs, and I worked at an alternative EVM, so I've been through everywhere, through 3 cycles, so it's like I've seen everything. But I think that this is a particularly interesting narrative where you combine the crypto and AI together. It's kind of like this is a perfect timing for it, because I think crypto has evolved enough to provide all the basic like rails and infrastructure and the mass of economy. And then AI is the most intuitive technology, comes in to kind of empower, not the humans, right? Like agents actually are perfect for crypto and DeFi. So now in this current environment, you have all the tools necessary to actually drive the agent swarms and help them, like let them do the complex financial tasks where humans fail currently today, right? The only problem with that though is like, how do you risk manage it? It's not a question of like whether agent swarms will be performing the most of the knowledge work in the future, but it's like who's gonna drive and control and risk manage them in the future, right? So that's what we're trying to kind of build, is like Theoric is trying to create this coordination layer where it includes like, it's incentive driven. It also has like registration identity and this like basic like communication tools in there, but it's fundamentally you regulate the behaviors of agents within the swarms by 2 things. One is to enable them to dynamically swarm together, being able to discover and form on the go. And the second is like to be able to punish, also like acknowledge the good behaviors, right? So the slashing, the staking, and all the crypto economics come in to drive the improvement of that system. So
yeah, I want to dig down that in a moment, because I think that's it's this other piece of how we think about economic functions here is the power of incentives, and the lesson we really learned from crypto, I think, has been this idea that you can use incentives to then model behaviors that lead to a trustable environment.
Right.
And
the key is a trust minimalized ecosystem.
I guess the good part of crypto, because many people, they hear crypto,
yeah,
they think of all the scams and whatnot, and you don't include AI in that, and it takes over with all.
Yeah.
So
We need new words.
and the good part of crypto is that I've seen some of the best people in the world. They are in that perhaps like 2% of crypto or whatnot, and I really think that perhaps what you meant, bringing them together with the AI, it's be great.
Oh yeah, we only want the good people, not the. We're not really big on the meme scams. The meme coin scams, not really what we're all about here. So, but Filecoin, definitely not a meme coin scam. One of the oldest, one of the longest serving and one of the most important pieces of the broad infrastructure here. Clara, why don't you just tell everyone, those of you who don't know what Filecoin is about, give us a quick rundown of that, and then we'll just maybe segue from that into how it fits within this moment in the AI.
Yeah, first off, by hands of the room here, who here is skeptical about crypto? You don't have to be shy. I just want a good pulse. So hopefully by the end of this panel, we can convince you about the good side of crypto and how to avoid the bad.
Yeah.
So
Have you done that for the last 10 years?
yeah,
but now we're really going to convince you, Renee.
I just wanted to get a good read on the room, so we don't have to go down rabbit holes in crypto if we don't need to. But what really brought me to crypto, I've been in this space since 2013, was really this idea of how to remove intermediaries. This was really why Bitcoin was so compelling for a lot of people early on who really hated the thought of having a hard time going through a bank during opening hours to send money to loved ones overseas, right? And when we think about big tech today and the way that you can't even go on Google and search for the best information out there, you end up finding information for the highest bidder of who pays the most for advertising dollars that gets the first search result, or who has the right consultant to help them optimize their SEO. That's the world of the web we live in today. For those that haven't filed their taxes and have used TurboTax, do you guys remember what TurboTax looked like 15 years ago? You bought an actual product from TurboTax, and you didn't have to pay a subscription every year. In fact, you fully owned that piece of software. So tomorrow, in honor of Tax Day and NARA's launch, really the way we think about data today on the web is in the same light, where some people are very unconscious about big tech just owning their data over time. And in a way, you no longer own that piece of software like TurboTax on a CD. You are now being able to only access your data by paying a fee every single month, right, or every single year to actually access that service. There was a really eerie Dark Mirror episode that just premiered over the weekend, where I don't know if anyone made it past episode 1, but this girl who's an elementary school teacher, she gets a brain cancer situation where a company basically says, we have now backed up your memory on cloud, and now you have to pay us this much per month to access your previous brain upload. But they then started flooding it with advertisements. So halfway through a conversation, she would start spewing out an ad that company would put into her brain because they weren't paying for the highest subscription that was ad-free, right? So that's a more extreme version, but that's the world that we're gonna see in AI, where today a lot of people are unconsciously giving away their information. They don't truly own it, and this is where Filecoin plays a role, which is infrastructure. Today, we don't even own the data that we put on AWS. In fact, if we stop paying AWS, if you're here as an academic researcher dealing with tons of data, you might be paying $100,000 a month. And you no longer have the ability to easily move your cloud storage to another solution because you're going to have so much in egress fees, you're stuck with that cost. So since a decade ago, Filecoin was actually, the white paper was written in 2013 by a brilliant guy, Juan Benet, who said, hey, if we can think about storage in a distributed way, where instead of centralized providers owning data, but instead a network of decentralized storage centers all around the world, where people can choose where they store and how they access it and fully own that data, wouldn't that be nice for us to really take back the web in a better place? And so that's been Filecoin the last 10 years. We have been working to build the world's largest decentralized storage. Today, 99% of decentralized storage is on Filecoin. And we're also looking at a ton of use cases to be able to adopt this solution into the enterprise. And so this is why this is so important today in this room, because everyone building agents are feeding off of tons of data. We want to be able to validate, verify, and make sure that that's coming from places where people can trust, and that also can be fully owned by people that upload and want to safekeep that.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned enterprises, because I think that's where, in many respects, just to sort of focus the attention of where the possibility of the AI economy is going to go, that's where the attention needs to be, because that's where a lot of the data is actually locked up, right? We've got, unfortunately, you know, the big LLMs that have launched upon us, they basically fed on what was the publicly available information, not all of it in the public domain for that matter, because a lot of it was actually copyrighted, but nonetheless publicly available. And that became, you know, the foundational models that we now see as sort of dominating generative AI. But there's still a ton of data that isn't out there that is very, very sensitive, whether it's for personal, you know, health reasons, but obviously a lot of it is just corporate data. And so, you know, the enterprise play is the big opportunity, right? How do you get to it? How do you unlock it? How do you do it in a confidentially, provably confidential manner so that the privacy is done? And then we can start to really do some interesting things about how do you solve the world's supply chain problems, and how do you actually sort of do, you know, drug discovery in a faster way, et cetera, et cetera. So when you talk, Clara, about enterprises, you know, needing this security, you know, I suppose it's a way for me to ask the next question, which is to say, like, okay, why aren't they doing this? Why isn't there an opportunity now for the biggest companies in the world to say, if I'm going to operate in the AI economy, I mean, I must have my data somehow preserved in a way I know that is not owned by AWS and I've got control over it. And I must have all this confidential compute in place as well. Like, what do we need to do to, you know, migrate the world's companies into this space? So, like, well, just to clarify first, too, if I'll come to you after that. I just want to see what you, because I think it's specifically related to a question about data in this regard.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the reality is actually enterprises are coming to us today, and they're starting to see it. We actually started an organization a few years ago called the Decentralized Storage Alliance, which brings together large enterprise companies, companies like IBM, companies like integrators like Ernst & Young. You can imagine all the consulting companies at the table. And they were even worried about having a single point of failure, whether that's a massive cybersecurity attack on their servers, whether that's a government coming from a corrupt place saying, hey, we're going to shut down your service in your country if you don't take this down, right? So that's the threat of actually centralization in large companies. And we see a lot of interest right now from enterprises wanting to find something alternative or even back up different copies of their company data. But I think at the end of the day, interoperability is key, and also making sure that everyone building solutions today in this room or in decentralized AI can really think about how you can have the right types of user experiences and on-ramps that make it seamless for people to switch from one solution to another, because the reality is a lot of enterprises have years ahead than where we are today with decentralized solutions. And they have also a lot of capital with that. There's a number of companies that we're working with that do decentralized compute that we're able to work with when we have storage providers with storage and also combine that with compute. We're able to bring at masses all around the world. We have over 3,000 data centers run by entrepreneurs. The ability to really do this at scale in a way that one single entrepreneur trying to take on this challenge can.
But still it is, I mean, the default compute solution is still AWS, right? Is still, and I think, Tufi, maybe think a little bit about like what this sort of dream of a truly decentralized compute market, like this economy, like how do we get there in a way that people can now just fluidly move their access to compute running on storage systems like Filecoin or wherever and know that it's come from trust?
So I think folks in the room here, perhaps they care about those things, but 99.9% of people out there, they don't care. Here's what they care about. We already know that, and this is something extremely important for all of you to know. In 2013, I talked about AI decentralized for the very first time, and people thought I'm crazy. 2016, ACM allowed me to tell the world about AI decentralized. How many of you know ACM? Association for Computing and Machinery. It's the #1 computer science in the world, issuance of Turing Award. So they gave me this fancy title. They're like, you're the global chair for the practitioners board conference committee. Go and tell the world about AI decentralized. We believe in you. This is great. Telling the world about AI decentralized, if you are working for Microsoft or Google or any SME or any government, and tell them, join us, they will not join you. They will not join you, believe me. But here's what I've noticed that worked really well for the last 2.5 years, and I've noticed it firsthand with Hypercycle, enabling everyone that is building AI agent to make a little bit more money by having that plug. They all join you. Okay? And the beauty of this is that they start joining you by learning about you, and rather than later, I guess they feel like if they don't join you, their competitor is going to join you. And at some point, if you get to that confidence that a manager at IBM or Microsoft or JP Morgan or whatnot, if they will not get that additional component, they will get fired, then we won that battle. Okay, so we have to flip it the other way around, and it's driven by the carrot. The carrot here is dollar, and people, they want more money, and effectively enabling every AI agent to make more money is effectively what we did, and we started noticing every single one coming in on board. On the other side of it, for researchers, if it's enabling you to make more money on your agent, what is it enabling the other side? Getting smarter. So it's also an incentive for folks that they want to get smarter. So with that, I stopped saying decentralized AI. I started calling it the Internet of AI, and they all come on board. The moment you say decentralized AI, they have like this friction or whatnot. And I really give a lot of credit to folks here that they're building it properly with the decentralized AI and letting you all know if you really want to be part of this, to do it right or not. But when you go out to the rest of the world, perhaps you need to have that message of like telling them how to make more money, and effectively that's, you probably notice the same thing. At the end of the day, they want to make more money to not get fired and to keep their job.
Yeah. All right, I think, Ramesh, how much time do we got here? Just 5 minutes, okay. Hey, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think just to echo what you said, decentralization was never the goal, right? Like just by calling everyone to join for the decentralized movement for blockchain, or it never worked. But what it does help is I think decentralization has two benefits. One is to make a network more secure. So if you imagine, so the reason that Bitcoin is very secure as a network is like it's the most decentralized network out there, right? Like first to start with, there's no known inventor, owner of the network, and then the distributed holder base is like just amazing. Like you can shut Bitcoin down. You cannot shut down even like some network like Cardano because it's so decentralized, even though it doesn't do anything, right? Exactly. So that's a decentralization. The beauty is like you cannot shut it down, and that's very, very relevant in the current like political environment. You want to be living in an economy where it's like it's not up to one single government or body to tell you what to do next. And the second is decentralization. To your point, is that it levels the playing field, right? So you allow more individual or smaller or retail participant versus like the huge like giant companies to dominate anything specific. So you can, developers can now come in, have a easier way to monetize their products, and traders or investors on the other side can also come in and spot that opportunity for financial upside versus like having to be a hedge fund.
Your sort of primary focus and certainly the primary use case you have for these swarms is actually financial trading,
Correct.
right? I mean,
because
just answering Streefy's call there, like let's make some money.
Yes. So I think the swarms is particularly suitable for financial use cases because for a couple of reasons. Like first of all, the swarms are built on the DeFi rails, and the only thing that has proven being the product market fit for crypto is trading. It is trading, right? Stablecoin plus trading. It's a Bitcoin. It's a exchanges trading, and then the rest of it is not having fun product market fit. That's why you have so many projects failing,
and
right?
Maybe when we move to an RWA tokenized world, it becomes the entire market, right?
Yeah, but it's a long tail opportunity, right? You have to be super patient with that. I think Theoric is specifically focused on DeFi because of the proven product market on the crypto side, but also it makes the most sense. So the use case that we look at is like on-chain liquidity provisioning, which is super hard to do by any individuals, and it's mostly losing money from impermanent loss and MAV and other risks. There's the yield optimization because now we have so many different ecosystems, have like so many different yield protocols, DeFi protocols, so that you need naturally an agent swarm, better yet, to coordinate and actually detect those opportunities, right? To optimize that process. There's also autonomous trading because the market is on like 24/7, so you can't really be like not sleeping at all as a human. So agent will come in pretty handy.
Yeah. How many of you paid attention to the whole Wall Street bets, GameStop sort of Robinhood scenario, right? Like, okay, at the end of the day, right, what was exposed is the fact that Robinhood, in fact, was basically front trading, or Citadel was on the other side of the trade, because all of that free, cheap trading opportunity was literally data that you were selling to Citadel, because it was dumb money selling money to smart money. And I always think in the AI age, this could just, and actually Robinhood itself has just introduced its own private banking system, so you can now use their AI agent to do all their, do all your trading for you, do the whole thing. It feels to me a little bit like it's like GameStop all over again. So the swarm thing finds really appealing because it would be this world in which we're all pooling together to fight against it, right?
And also like specialized agents, right? So just very similar to human societies where if you have a specialized set of skills, you do that over and over and you become an expert and veteran in that specific field, right? You're a researcher or you're a data specialist, you're node operating networks, you're a data researcher. So the way we structure swarms are in three primary components. One is on the top of the data analytics, so the observer agent. Then in the middle is like all sorts of strategy agents. So you take the data and signals, you turn them into policies and strategies to do all sorts of use cases. And then at the bottom is execution.
Feels like a little army, basically. But
right, exactly.
Just we're going to close this out, Clara. What do you give us some final thoughts here? And I think I'm particularly interested in the idea of the integrity of the data that we're using as we are entering into this age. So I don't know.
No, absolutely. So my background is I actually spent more than a decade in the national security space, and then also in large tech companies. So I've seen all kinds of versions of how this works also within startups. When I was in US government, I was focused on countering homegrown extremism and foreign influence operations. When you think about these worlds of the worst actors monetizing and leveraging data for evils, right? These are like massive explosion attack, coordinated attacks. You have to verify where the data came from. Did it actually come from the user, right? These are really basic questions that, if you can imagine the world's worst scenarios, is so important. And today, we're able to use decentralized storage as a way to really protect journalists around the world. If they're taking pictures of war crimes, they want to be one day accepted in international criminal court. That data may not be admissible to the courts because today it's so easy to edit and proctor data. When we think about even open data today, if I were to tell you 5 years ago, you probably, or maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't believe me, but today a lot of people don't trust data coming out of governments, right? They might not actually believe it is the truth, or it could be, certain people may not really believe environmental data or data coming from academia. They might say, hey, I think this data was tampered with. At the end of the day, when we think about the age of AI, the internet of AI, all of that comes to the ability to being able to verify where the data comes from. The most powerful AI models come from the most amount of data trained. If the most amount of data trained is coming from an equal set of data that might already be skewed, you're already creating bias in that. What's wonderful about Filecoin is we actually work with great organizations like Internet Archive, where all of the data on the internet is being backed up on Filecoin. And we've also worked with Theoric and a number of other companies in the Web3 space to really think about what if we could create decentralized AI agents that can actually crawl and make sense of these archival data in a way that today's version of the web, you wouldn't even get that level of accuracy, right? We did a prototype of a CIA AI agent that would crawl over a nonprofit called Muckrock that looks over FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, and you're able to find new insights. Journalists can now go to Muckrock and say, hey, can you verify this thing actually came from this document, and quickly come back with accurate results, right? So the possibilities here are endless, but we have to remember that today's web, and even where most AI models are trained from, isn't like an encyclopedia where it's representative of the entire universe. And so our goal is really to think about things at the storage layer to make sure we can store as accurate of information. We are actually a fraction of the cost of AWS when it comes to large archival data sets, 4 exabytes of storage right now on our network. So we think there's way more ahead, but we don't think cost is the only factor.
Yeah.
I think for some people it might be, but we really believe that resiliency and quality of data go with that, and ability to verify is going to come in more important than ever with AI agents.
I think we have to wrap too.
I know we're out of time, so I just want to say I'm happy to collaborate with any one of you. You can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Just ping me. I would be excited to. And I just want to say one prediction for the future. She mentioned the CIA agent in the future is going to be AI agent.
Right, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, I know. So that's a great joke.
They will be the same thing, agents. But the word agent is a key word.
Agent.
It means trust, like a fiduciary that you trust. That's your agent. They look out for you. So we need to build AI agents that we can trust, which brings us back to the word I was using at the beginning of this whole thing. It's all about what you can trust. All right, thank you. This is wonderful.